Hello. Good morning. Can you hear me well? Yeah, okay. How are you feeling this morning? I know most of you haven't had coffee yet, and I guess you're not feeling old, but you should. Before we start, let me introduce myself, Igor Ljubincic. It's quite easy for Croatians to figure out the surname. Abroad, I'm normally known as Igor, impossible last name, or something like that. At the moment, I work as a business and strategy consultant for myself. Having fun? Hello. Take many pictures, please. Thank you. And I have done a lot of interesting things in my career. I mostly work for big companies, large enterprises and corporations. Along the way, I've also developed a passion for externalizing my work. So I have a bunch of books, technical and fiction. I've written a bunch of patents, mostly on data center orchestration, scheduling, self-healing systems, and power management. So that's where my, let's call that, passion and expertise sit. I'm also a petrol head, which is quite important. That's me, in a Megane at Spa in Belgium. And finally, if this is too short of an introduction and you want to learn more, you can go on dedoimedo.com, which is my website, and figure out more about my work, or contact me by the email again at my website. So that's the brief introduction here. Normally, I like to make things interactive, which is not typical for keynotes. And I also like to use physical incentives like candy for participation. We're not going to do that today. We're going to do that tomorrow at a workshop. So keep in mind. Okay. So technology. Technology is an indistinguishable part of our lives today, more and more, especially digital technology, so to speak. And we're all having a lot of fun with it. We have online connectivity all the time. Some of you will probably check your phones for an update or two, an email, maybe a little bit of Facebook while I'm having this session. And we need it all the time, 24/7. We've gone from, let's call mom and dad on the phone once a week, to literally, if you don't have connectivity, this is an emergency situation. It's all fun, it's all exciting, we have gadgets, we're enjoying ourselves, but all this technology is made for young people. All of what we have, pretty much, let's call it the internet experience, and anything that's internet related is made, designed, and focused at young people, us, at the moment. But there's a problem. So, are you familiar with the concept of ghost cities? Is that a no or yes or we don't care? Which one? Okay, let's do it a little bit interactively. Who is familiar with the concept? Please raise your hand. Okay, most of you. Who is not familiar? So all of you. Okay, who doesn't care? Okay. The concept of a ghost town is a city that used to have populations of people, and then that no longer happens. And usually there are two or three reasons for that. One is natural changes. Let's say you have a mining town and they deplete the resources. There's no more need for that. The other reason is a natural disaster or a human-made disaster. This photo is from where? Yeah, this is Pripyat in Ukraine. This is a ghost town, basically the city that supported the Chernobyl nuclear plants and was evacuated after they had a little mishap there in 1986. And the third reason for having a ghost town is because, what? Let's have it, just kind of a funny joke somewhere. The third reason is? Who said that? Very good. The reason is you don't have people to put in the cities. You've built a city, you planned for, say, 50,000, 100,000 people, but you only have 10,000. It's a ghost town. And believe it or not, we, Europe, the Western world, are heading toward the ghost towns. So this may sound like, ooh, I'm trying to be dramatic for the sake of it. But let's look at statistics compiled by various bureaus of statistics in the European Union. You have a graph that I've taken from Europe.eu that shows population trends in Europe. We have the, let's call it the optimistic, the realistic, and the pessimistic trend lines, which show how the percentage of old population, which at the moment is classified as age 65 and above, as part of the whole. So if you look at the graphs, I hope you can see the numbers well. By 2050, you will have somewhere in between 20 and 35% of people above the age of 65. Today, that's basically people who are no longer in the workforce. They're technically classified as old people or retired people or something like that. But we will have somewhere in between 25 to 35% of people outside the workforce. But that's 65. What about a little bit less than that? Let's say the age of how much? 50? So let's see what the other graph has to say. We have another one. I'll stand on this side a little bit so your necks don't get too tired. Okay, so we have another graph that shows the same picture, but it is a little more detailed. To explain what we have here, we have the male and female population in different color graphs, and then we have age buckets every 5 years, and the percentage of population that will be in each of these buckets by the year 2080. Okay, so it's a little further away. And then you have, that's the full colored graph, full colored bars, and the ones that are dotted, sorry, not dotted, they're just borders, that's actually population that we have today, 2016. Okay. You do your job well, and there's a prize for you, right? Okay. So let's look at age 50 and above. Okay, so that's pretty much the middle of the graph, and let's look up. Males are in the blue, men are in the blue on the left, women in orange on the right. So we will have something like 3.5% of males and about 4% of females in the group of 50 to 54. And then we'll have a similar percentage, 55 to 60. And we go up. And then we can see that as we go up, we'll also have far more people in the brackets above 75, and then we'll have 85 and more. And we can actually see that this pyramid is no longer a pyramid. It becomes a completely different shape, and we'll have a huge percentage of population that are technically super old, 85 and above. So however you look at it, we are getting older. As nations, Europe, the Western world, specifically Europe, we are getting older all the time. And this is heading in the direction where we will have, I have not coined this, but I like this. It's called the triple 50 problem. It means that by year 2050, 50% of population will be above the age of 50, which means that by 2050, young people will no longer be the majority. 50% of everyone, 1 in 2, will be someone who is not necessarily so keen on modern stuff or cool stuff. Worse yet, 50 is still okay. We're young. We can do anything. But when you get to 60, it's not the same difference as 40 to 50. And when you get to 60 to 70 is not the same difference. At some point, age brackets will become more and more important. And then remember that we will have 10 to 11% of people above the age of 85. And it will just get worse. Not necessarily worse in the sense that it's not good to be old, but there will be more and more adults, fewer young people. Are you feeling young and happy? Okay. What I'm trying to say is the model doesn't have to be accurate in the sense that this may happen by 2040 or it may happen by 2071. But it will happen. There is going to be an inflection point where young people will not have the democratic majority of decision-making in technology anymore. So what I mean by that is we need to make a change. so that in the future, we do technology for the majority of users, which is not the case today. Come in, have fun. Okay. So when you go about making technology, all right, we know that we were going to get old. So no, my second question is, can we predict the future? And the answer is? Okay, we still have a problem of yes, no, and we don't care. Let's start again. Can we predict the future? Yes, hands up. Don't say that. Who said yes? One person, yes? We can. Okay. No? Okay. I don't care? Very good. We have a few nihilists in the company, which is fine. And then we have a few people who may possibly need medications and more coffee in the morning. And then we have a vast majority of pessimists who believe that we cannot predict the future. And I say we can, because the future is entirely dependent on us. Today, when you develop technology, what are we trying to do? Okay, you have an idea, you have a product. You're trying to make it amazing, you try to make it unique, you try to make it better than anyone else has done. You have to have something that is going to be exciting, that's going to be amazing, that's going to be the next big thing. So we have ideas like the DVD rewinder, for instance. It sounds like a good idea, right? Or we have flying cars. And we have all these amazing IoT gadgets, all of which are designed to be, first and foremost, new. But in this game, in the game of age and getting old, there's no reason even to predict things. We are going to get old. It's a fact. We are going to need things that old people need. And as time goes by, in the Western world, more and more people will need things that old people need. So there's even no need to predict anything because you know what's going to happen. Unless we get a meteor, like the last one 65 million years ago, making dramatic changes to how we live, we will have a future with a majority of old people. So there's your solution. The next big thing is actually things that will concern us 30 to 40 years from now, or 50. What we have today is the IoT buzzword. I put the word revolution in quotation marks, because everyone is now so focused on making everything interconnected. Everything needs to have a little socket on a chip, needs to have an embedded device. There has to be Linux in it. There has to be something cool and amazing. And it's all designed to supposedly make our lives better and easier and make us part of this big game. Who's here in the IoT business, by the way? Only 3 people. The rest of you are not yet in the IoT business. I presume infrastructure support, right? Yes? Pure development? Not working at all? Yes. Students, yeah, good life. Remember the good days now. This is not going to happen again. Until you hit the 65, maybe. So, IoT revolution. Okay, so most of you are not in the IoT business. IoT, the idea is, okay, we can minimize technology. We no longer need big, huge processors. We don't need huge heat sinks to dissipate the heat created by these chips. So we can take tiny little pieces of silicon, and we can put them anywhere. We can put them in boxes. We can put them in trucks, in containers. We can put them in our refrigerators, televisions, everything. Okay. So we're now doing this little thing and trying to interconnect the whole world. But the focus is entirely not on the future. The focus is entirely on making as many, let's call it data points, so that companies can profile and make money by making some kind of predictive analysis of your behavioral patterns. But that's today. Today you are behaving as young people. You are not behaving as old people. When you get old, you will behave as old people. So what we have today is we're building an infrastructure of interconnectedness that is not solving any real problem that will happen in 20, 30, 50 years. We're doing fun for now, we're not thinking about the future. And today, if you look at what we have solutions that are not designed for old people. Take your smartphones out for a second, just for fun. Let's do the dramatic, keeping you engaged and you're having fun and you're actually listening to me. Take your smartphones out, right? How big are they? They're small, 4 to 5, 6 inches. You have a screen on these little things, and you use them. Okay, I'll actually demonstrate. You know how you use your smartphones, but you basically do this thing, right? Like this. Now imagine you're 65 or 70 or 85. Someone has given you a piece of brick that has a little bit of weight to it, and then what you're doing is you're craning your neck down and you're staring at a tiny piece of equity and you're trying to figure out what's happening, and then occasionally you use your finger to move things left and right. This is fine when you're 16 or maybe 26 or even 36. But do you think this is a suitable piece of technology for an 85-year-old or a 90-year-old? Do you really want to go to, let's say, when you're 65, and time is precious, and life's importance and goals change? Do you really want to focus your life on small embedded devices? And that's not just a smartphone. It's everything that's minimized. It could be some kind of a smartwatch. It could be some small other thing like a tablet or so forth. But things that are not comfortable for sustained and long use. They're not comfortable for your muscles. They're not comfortable for your skeleton. They're not comfortable for your eyes. Even the way you communicate is not comfortable for most old people. Young people are okay with touch keyboards. Young people are okay with having lots of little things, flashy icons, things moving around. Think about it. The technology we have today, superb if you want to make money, and superb for young people. They're not suitable for adults, for very old people. And we'll get there. So today, smartphones, but who knows what we'll have tomorrow. And there's going to be another type of technology that is suited for young people, but not for the old people. And that's the majority that we're going to have. So when you go about designing solutions, and you go to do that for the majority, which will be old, think about ergonomic considerations, the size, the shape, the interaction factor. Then think about, most importantly, health considerations, your eyes, your strength, your ability to perform certain physical actions will change. It's not a bad thing. It's just a biological, physical thing that's inevitable in all of us. Some of you will remain marathon runners till about 70. Some of you can't run a marathon now. It doesn't matter. But you will not retain your physical strength, ability, agility, flexibility, patience, tolerance, anything that you have today. It will get worse. It will deteriorate and become less. It's not a bad thing. It's just life. But health considerations need to go into physical design and interaction design of products. Because one day, the smartphone will no longer sell because 1 in 2 people will not want to use it. They'll want something else. They'll want something that's suitable for their age, mindset, capabilities, something. And then the usage model. How do you use technology today? Technology is transactional. You do things very quickly, and then you do something else again very quickly. But it's very short durations. It's also quite fast in a way. You need to process a lot of little things. If you think of a typical online, let's call it session, you have a chat window on the right, and you have a chat window on the left, and you're answering an email, and you're liking someone's post, even though you don't really like it, but you need to like it so they think that you like it. And it's socially acceptable to do that. And all of these things are very neurotic in a way. It's a usage model that's good for people who are willing to invest energy in quick transactions, in quick context switches, who are willing to adapt to situations that are not necessarily comfortable. But it's fine, because young people are by design more willing to learn new things. It's part of, again, our biology. The younger we are, the more we learn, and the older we get, the less we are capable of learning, even if we want to learn. Just biology. And the last piece, willingness to spend money. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the older you get, the more you want to preserve your life. The more you want to be comfortable, the more you want to enjoy yourself, and you are willing to invest finance into making that happen. And better yet, as you get older, for most people, you also have more financial means to do that, especially in the Western world. People will spend money to have fun as they get older. They will buy accessories, they will buy technology, they'll even buy help, so to speak. They'll have personal assistants so that they can continue their lives in a meaningful and fun way. So when you develop stuff for old people, it's not a matter of small or fun or engaging in that sense, or cheap, which is a lot of considerations today that have something that's cheap and accessible. For old people, it's something that has to be comfortable, has to be health-friendly, and it can be expensive. That's the best thing. You don't need to minimize your rationale around how much you spend on it. Actually, the more the better in that sense. Are you feeling gold yet? Okay. I hope you can appreciate this lovely joke. We'll take a few seconds to savor the sophistication that went into making it. You like it? Do you remember the context? Okay, so old people, who has watched and seen Zoolander here? Hands up. Zoolander 2. Who has not seen Zoolander? Okay, so you have some homework to do after this session. I mean, seriously. So what about Linux, right? We are at a Linux conference, and so far I have used the word Linux only once, or maybe twice. You remember allo, allo, Michel? I will say this only once, right? Okay. Too early, maybe. Yeah, it's fine. So what about Linux? I mentioned Linux only briefly, and where do you all, or do we all fit into this story? As you know, hopefully, Linux is basically the powerhouse of the world. It has become the most dominant operating system and technology for most of the infrastructure that we have. It is slightly bombastic to say this because things like power grid, water facilities are not necessarily running Linux. And then most weapon systems in the world are also not on Linux. But in day-to-day stuff that we do, you will encounter Linux pretty much all the time. You might not even be aware of it, but it will be present in the products that you use. Anything digital, there's 5 out of 6 chance that you will be using Linux. So this means that you will probably, if you continue working in the open source community, if you continue working with Linux-related technologies, you will one day get into a position where you are working on something, Linux-based, that impacts the lives of people around you in some way. And that goes back to we're getting older. So you will definitely be developing the future. You will be developing things for the old people. And the thing is, those old people are actually you. Because you will be working now, or in 5 years, on something that you will be needing in 35 years. It's a cycle, and it's entirely selfish. So you will actually be working with Linux to make your lives, and my life, but your life as well, better when that point comes, when we have to face ghost towns and problems that we have. So how do you do that? So how do you use Linux to make things better for us? Let's look at how technology is used today. We have basically 2 models. We have a server-client model, and then we have all sorts of fancy, buzzwordy, stateless things, right? Where you broadcast something, and then some technology captures it and processes the data. Server-client model in this sense is not necessarily the classic infrastructure server-client model that you think of. It's more around how will the majority of people be using the technology. So when you develop something, you need to be aware of, if I serve something and someone utilizes it, in what sense will it be perceived by people? How will you acknowledge that what they're doing is right or wrong? You need to build technology that is aware of the fact that the user will not necessarily understand the mechanisms or will be willing to invest time in acknowledging the mechanisms. Lots of the technology that you use today is not for your benefit, if you think about it. Like CAPTCHA, to know if you're a robot or not. Do you know what CAPTCHAs are? Who doesn't know what a CAPTCHA is? Okay, so we all know what it is. Excellent. You're using that as basically human image processing technology. You're helping algorithms fine-tune their ability to see patterns in pictures, which is natural for us. It's part of the hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, but computers struggle with it. So capture is a fine concept in preventing, let's call it bad technology from doing bad things, but why do you technically ever need to identify yourself as a human to a machine? It's technically a computer asking you, are you human, right? Why? You are a human, right? You know that. Do you really want to be 85 or 95 and trying to figure out what's written on a little CAPTCHA that is purposefully made difficult to read? That's just an example, a small example. Or when you need to send someone something and you want to translate it, most of the time translations don't work well. But then you're okay with it, you'll manually change a few things. But you are willing to invest time today in making technology work, which is not good enough, or it's imperfect, because you're okay with it. You have enough time, you have enough patience. But will you have enough patience when you're 60 or 70 or 100? Probably not. The other thing is data models. We accumulate more and more data. That's probably the biggest buzzword of the world today. Let's collect data. Everyone thinks they're Google, and everyone is collecting data on everything. And then no one is doing anything with it. They're just keeping hard disks full of stuff, and then one day they'll run analytics run. One day. But that's one thing. The other thing is you collect data, but are you collecting meaningful data? If you collect something from a 20-year-old or a 70-year-old, is that the same set of data? Is the same importance? Even if you collect the same data points, it's completely different things. And for someone who is 70, for instance, maybe the most important thing is to collect their health data. But for someone who's 20, the most important thing is to collect the singles in their area data, right? You can collect them for both, but that doesn't necessarily give you the same importance of collected information. So you need to figure out what data models. It's actually not necessarily, this is how my database will look like. It's the data model. What information you need so that you serve your client the best. And the client will be old people who do not want to understand technology. Technology is transparent. So you'll need to figure out data models that are transparent. And today we don't have transparent data models. Lots of stuff that we have require and demand attention from us. Form factor. We can minimize because we can minimize. We're getting smaller and smaller silicon, and then we say, let's see how much stuff we can put in smaller and smaller things. That's the wrong way about it when you're getting older. If you think about it, how fast can you type on a smartphone versus tablet versus a full desktop with a keyboard? Or even compare a desktop with a laptop. The bigger, the better in this sense. And the more comfortable, the better in this sense. So when you have older people, when we get old, how do you want to use technology? How do you want to enjoy your life so that you're having fun with what you're doing? Think about it. I don't have a solution that says it has to be a 24-inch screen and 100-point font because we're all going to get blind. That's not the point. The point is the form factor needs to be adapted to the future landscape of humanity in the Western world. Old people, and I'm not using it in the derogatory sense, but old people will not necessarily put up with the solutions that we have today. Assistive and predictive. What I mean by that is we will not have time as we get older to wait for technology to do things for us. We will expect technology to help us, make our lives better and fast. And that means that it also has to be predictive. That technology needs to be able to know, to anticipate our needs. That goes back and connects to the data models. Think of what you will need when you get 50, 60, 70. And then think of what kind of things you will struggle with. And then think, okay, is there a way to make technology make us struggle less? Artificial intelligence. Are you happy with the current state of artificial intelligence in the world? Okay, yes, no, don't care. Yes? Okay, you are happy. You're happy. No. Okay, don't care. Okay, interesting. Artificial intelligence, in my opinion, today is horrible. First of all, it's almost entirely English language related. If you step outside the boundaries of English language and interact with a machine, it goes exponentially down in terms of quality and accuracy. And the second thing is it's very basic. It's designed to supposedly help us manage our chaotic lives. I can book a flight quickly or ask for a taxi. Okay, fine, but it's not really intelligence. It's more around you say a keyword and then the machine figures out the quickest answer for you. That's not really intelligence. The real intelligence will be in figuring out important things. Changes in social dynamics, changes in urban planning, changes in health requirements, the big things. Because when you get to a position when you have a ghost town, it's too late. But how will you know that you need to build 10 new hospitals, or you need to build a new school, or you need to make sure that there are facilities that help manage the majority of population? That's where the artificial intelligence will come in. The last piece is really maybe the most frightening one, labor shortage. We already have that, by the way, in the Western world. And technically, we will need less people as we develop technology. But on the other hand, we will have too few young people to support the old people. When we get old, we may be in a position where there's not going to be enough people to do things that make life modern. We may have a breakage of society in the sense that there's not going to be facilities to support what we need. And again, it's not a doomsday apocalypse scenario where you drive in a truck with a shotgun and hunt zombies. Not like that. It's around, okay, what if there are not, just a simple thing, there are not enough people to serve our food. What then? There are not enough people to repair the roads. There are not enough policemen, not enough doctors. We will get older. We will need more medical help. It's a fact. And then if you have 2 or 3 times more old people than you have today, you need 2 or 3 times more doctors, right? But where will those doctors come from? Where will we find them?
China.
Say again? Possibly. But that's not a solution that's related to Linux, though. Maybe. So what I think is that at the moment, the technology that we have is just not good enough. It's good enough for today, but definitely not for what we have in the future. It's mostly, small and gimmicky. It's buzzwordy. We're using stuff that sounds cool and exciting, and we are, the bleeding edge of fun, and we live these active X lives, crossfitting and all that, whatever. But that's fun and cool now. That doesn't necessarily mean that will be fun in 20, 30, 50 years. And then we also have changes that happen too often. Life today is very fast. It's also, you get a load of information in a typical time period, a day, which is more than you used to have. And it's also too much for most minds. And I'm not saying it in a derogatory sense. Again, think about it. 30 years, our brains haven't changed in the last 35,000 years. That's pretty much when the modern human mind has developed, 35,000 years. 35 years ago, so 3 orders of magnitude less, we didn't have the internet. So people had news on the TV, they had radio, they had newspapers. And the amount of information they could absorb was limited. Only 35 years later, you can literally see and hear what happens everywhere in the world, live streaming, from every corner, in every language. You're bombarded with technology. You have 2, 3, 4 pieces of technology that give you connectivity on you at any given time. And that's a lot. And we're handling volumes of information that are much bigger than we used to handle. So that's one thing. And then we mentioned the biological change as we get older. So on one hand, more and more information. On the other hand, less and less capability to process that information. Too many changes. So how are we going to handle that? We need to think about it as well. Today we have way too much information, and we'll get more. And that's actually the wrong way. We don't need more information. We need less information, but we need the good information, which we don't have today. It's all designed for the young people. So, you're going to go about from this conference to do your work. You'll be thinking about a future and designing new technologies. So here's my ultimate philosophy for you when you start doing something. It doesn't matter if it's a script. It doesn't matter if it's an IoT device, a car, a healthcare scanner. It doesn't matter. The Grandma Gen 2 test. TGGT, okay? Who doesn't know what Gen 2 is? Okay, for your sake, Gen 2 is a Linux distribution that requires a lot of hard work to get working. It takes hours, it takes blood, it takes life. It's a special place. It's like a black hole. You just so ask yourselves if you have a grandmother who is willing to participate in your experiment, and you're willing to risk it that she will never again make cakes for you, ever again. You give her a laptop, and you give her a USB stick with Gen 2 on it, something like that, and you say, Grandma, can you please install Gen 2? Now, if your grandmother can install Gen 2, excellent. I mean, really amazing. But if she cannot install Gen 2, it's not because your grandmother is wrong in any way. It's because this technology sucks. It's not designed to be meaningful and useful. Now, this is an exaggeration because people are not supposed to compile things, except, well, a few of us. We get paid for that, right? But in life, you're not supposed to compile things. In life, you're supposed to take a piece of technology. It's supposed to make you happy. It's supposed to make your life better. So if someone needs to compile their future life, it's not good. It's not heading in the right direction. So you design a solution. Make sure that solution is usable. And think about yourselves in 50 years. Do you want to be compiling Gen 2 when you're 70? I don't know, maybe. Who wants to be compiling Gen 2 when they're 70, by the way? Ooh. We'll need some medical assistance and police on the way out, please. That's my message. Don't applaud yet, please. Let's do some questions or answers and stuff like that. Let's do the interactive part. This is the piece where you talk to me and I talk back. Yes. Comments, anything. You say, this sucks. I wanted to drink my coffee and you interrupted me. That's fine. Let's go. 2 minutes and then we'll hand to the next person.
Hi. Actually, it doesn't suck, but it's a little bit scary.
What's scary?
The future.
No, it's not scary. You know what's going to happen. You're going to get old.
Yeah.
Make a technology that's going to make your life better.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about all these technologies, adaptive technologies, Internet of Things, and everything that will come, do you think that it's up to the little companies to drive this change for the old people, or do you think that big companies are just too big and they are not actually focused so much on the future, or do they already have some plans stored in their drawers and safes and they're just waiting for us to get old and say, hey, we already have a solution for that? Do you know what's the current state of development of such solutions?
Okay. If I can just paraphrase your question, the question is, are the big guys holding information from us? They have solutions, but they're not giving it to us. And can small companies instigate change? My answer to that is yes. Being small will limit your ability to make change on a large scale fast enough. But It starts with small things. So yes, it will take giants to make it a revolution. But when you write your next script, when you make your next wristwatch, you will make a product of some kind. Make that product with the mindset that it has to be, guys, don't go yet. No. You'll have to take it into consideration that one day, this may not be sustainable. You will need to build something that the next generation of people, and you, when you get old, you will want to use it. Think about it that way. It doesn't change your work day to day, but just the focus on, do I want to do this when I'm 70? Will change how you do it. That's all. Start with that. We cannot easily change social dynamics. It's very difficult. Once populations start moving in a certain directions, it takes generations to change. But it's fine. Just accept it. Okay, it's not going to be a doomsday situation. Let's just make sure that we design things that are better. So you start with your scripts not being Gentoo-oriented. And someone else makes an IoT device that's also good for old people. And then slowly, when we get to that point, it's going to be just natural. It's not going to be a change, because we're not going to get there in one go. It's going to be 50 years of apathy and coffee and Facebook. No, it doesn't sense. Facebook. You're just going to be... Who has used the smartphone during the session, by the way? Who is willing to admit to that? There you go. Okay, next question. One more. Just one more. Yes?
Please wait for the microphone.
You said you're dissatisfied with the current state of artificial intelligence.
Yes.
So what do you expect from artificial intelligence if you're dissatisfied?
What I expect from the question, I'm not happy with artificial intelligence, what do I expect from it? I personally expect artificial intelligence to have the ability to, what we call, I'm sorry for the buzzword, deep learning. What's the difference between normal artificial intelligence and deep learning is the level of links that you can make, kind of a correlations. Normal artificial intelligence is 1 or 2 levels of correlation, not necessarily causation. And deep learning is having 6 or 7 levels of that. So you can say that if someone buys milk at 3 o'clock in the morning from Konzum in Zagreb, then they probably, what they're doing with their lives, right? That's the last piece that you need to figure out. So I want to be able to have really meaningful connections, and that actually means full language transparency. Computers do not have the ability for sarcasm. Computers cannot understand language nuances. Computers do not understand how we actually communicate. Once you figure out that piece, the technology you use will actually be adapted for humans. But that's going to take decades. It's actually language nuances. Because you can say deep learning, and deep learning, it makes no difference from the computer perspective. Everyone here laughed. 35 years of evolution, yeah. Any more, or we're done? Anyone in the last row there, the really enthusiastic people? Okay. Thank you.